Hello random people on the internet, my name is Banana, and today we got another episode of Skyblock news coming at you, and in this video, once again, we're talking about a 1.0 design thread. If you don't know how these work, the admins are in the process of designing 1.0, meaning that they really haven't made much, but they really want to get their ideas out there, see what people think, and get some feedback. Today's thread is titled A Few Smaller Ideas. They say that they're smaller ideas, but all of these are really cool, and a bunch of them seem pretty hype. So we're going to go over all of them today. If you enjoy the video or if it helps you out, I'd really appreciate a subscription. It's free. You can undo it later. Not that many people are subscribed. It's awesome. You should do it. But let's get right into the thread. So to start off the thread, they basically say, yo, too much brain power is being used up in the last couple days. You know, they need to calm down. They need to take a little break and talk about some smaller ideas that they have for 1.0. We're not talking a whole skill revamp. We're just talking some simple quality of life-ish or just really cool changes. So the first change that they bring up, monster levels. Monster levels in Skyblock currently don't make sense. They don't follow any logic and have been manually added to reflect how the development team felt about the monster strength. It created large disparities where two different mobs with the same levels may have drastically different stats. A formula is now going to be applied to the mobs to automatically display a level. I guess this is cool. I don't think levels have an effect on the game very much unless you're looking at something like the intimidation artifact. Otherwise, you're not really looking at the mob levels, but maybe they'll make them more useful, and it's nice to just see an indicator of how strong a mob is, especially for a newer player, rather than just looking at the health, because some mobs can have some low health but extremely high damage numbers, so it'll be good to have that. The next two changes I'm going to lump together because they're both related to dungeons. The first one is the dungeon queue. Party Finder has its pros and cons. It can be improved, but more importantly, they want to add a new feature which will allow you to simply queue up for a specific dungeon, and the system's automatically going to match you with players of your level and form a party with diverse classes based on the floor's distribution. The next change, they're going to have a bunch of QOL changes for dungeons. Only 60% of the total secrets will need to be found to get all the score from them. Every 1% of secrets found above 60% will instead grant 0.5% catacombs XP. To compensate, the speed score is going to be harder to max out based on each floor's average speed. The first completion XP bonus will instead be given on the first 5 completions. The first 5 successful runs of the day will grant 40% extra XP and fixing party warping after dungeons. So that is a lot of stuff that's going to help the casuals of dungeons. It's going to help me for sure when I go and end up doing catacombs. I was debating doing it soon, but they're basically increasing the XP by an insane amount right there. They're increasing it by 20% just in every single run, and the first 5 runs of each day is going to be an extra 40% on top of that. The fixing party warping after dungeons is just nice because you don't need mods such as Skytails or SBE to have auto reparty. All of that's just pretty good. I think that it definitely is very casual to make it go down to 60% of total secrets needing to be found, but who really cares? It's just going to increase the speed of runs, if anything, because they don't have to collect as many secrets, especially if you're not going for XP and you're just trying to get something like a Necron's handle. That's going to be pretty cool. The next two changes are pretty simple as well. Player infos in chat. Hovering your mouse on a player name in chat will display information about them, such as their Skyblock level, guild, and other trophies. The next one after that, training dummies, slightly unrelated to 1.0, but why not mention it now? Training dummies are receiving an update, making it possible to see your total DPS, select any mob from bestiary to test, and many other options. I'm definitely perfectly down with this because the training dummies sort of suck because most of them can just get one shot by a late game player. Being able to check yourself on each like boss or something in the bestiary, that's going to be pretty fun. I'm interested to see if it's going to change into all the mobs because Magma Cube boss is in the bestiary. So if I can put a Magma Cube boss training dummy on my island, that'll be pretty dope. Now let's get back to some meatier ideas. This one is called Yearly Slayer Progress. They recently had an idea and they thought it's cool, but they need feedback. So what if every Skyblock year, each time you kill a specific Slayer boss, the next one will be X% stronger, but also provide you with slightly better and better odds for rare rewards and extra XP. The idea is that eventually each year you'll reach your limit if you keep trying, and will have to wait a few days for the boss to reset. The progress is going to be separate for each different boss, so you're going to get enough gameplay content each week, and your best score will be saved each reset, and you'll be able to compare your power increase from a year to the next. So this is intriguing to say the least. I think grinding out Slayer XP is pretty fun, and if you can't grind it at a good efficiency at some point, that is going to get pretty annoying. But I also do like the idea of switching up the gameplay loop. If you guys don't know how long a Skyblock year is, it's 5 days and 4 hours, so that's not an insanely long time to wait to do a Slayer boss if you are failing at the highest difficulty. And if it's giving a good amount of rare rewards, that would be pretty awesome. I think the one problem for me with this is that the main majority of the RNG drops that you get come from something like the XP meter, because RNG drops just don't drop. And I guess I'm interested to see this. It could be cool, but I have literally no idea how bad it could be or how good it could be until we see actually how much health it goes up and how much XP you get on it to compensate for that health. This next one, we're standing over by Tia the Fairy because they are talking about fairy souls. Fairy souls are a bit weird right now. They reward stats, and that's a problem because it forces new players to find them all, which is very scary for them to add more as well with. But having the new player experience where you basically tell someone, hey, you would very much enjoy Hypixel Skyblock. Please go spend at least an hour and a half, if not like 3 hours, going and finding every single fairy soul. It's gonna be a fun time. You're gonna enjoy it so much. That is not something that the admins want to do. In 1.0, the fairy souls are not going to reward stats anymore. Instead, they might reward things like extra storage space, or just other useful things like Skyblock XP, participating in the global progression. Losing all the stats, they say, won't make the game harder, as the whole progression will be reevaluated and balanced in 1.0. Losing stats here means you'll get them back somewhere else. I definitely hope that they don't remove all of these stats somehow. They're probably just going to end up throwing them in Skyblock levels, I'll bet, because that's a good spot to throw them, in my opinion. But those stats are pretty beefy. They give you a lot of stuff, so losing out on all that health could suck. I hope that they don't actually remove all of it that much. I imagine that they probably still will find a way to remove all of them, because it's the admins we're talking about. But yeah, fairy souls aren't given stats anymore. The next thing they're talking about is the boss collection. They're talking about the different milestones in the boss collections from dungeons, and they're basically saying that they implemented that and they think it worked. They think that it is pretty cool, and they're going to add it to the rest of the game when it comes to bosses. Obviously, this is not that good for many of the bosses in the game, because all of them are sort of outdated, unless they're talking about Slayer bosses. If they add that to Slayer bosses, I think that'll be a really cool system to see what they actually allow it to drop at what amount of kills. I think that could be a really, really cool system if they're making it drop some insane things. But yeah, boss collections are coming, everything else. Not that big of a change, but it's gonna be cool. Now we're at my boy Rusty, because Rusty currently, if you don't know, he grants you telekinesis on any weapon that you put in here. I can't put telekinesis on the gyrokinetic wand for some reason, but you can put telekinesis on via Rusty. They're going to change that. Telekinesis is not even going to be an enchant anymore. It's going to be a global perk unlocked at Skyblock level 5, and Rusty's going to become a lost and found, where players will be able to buy back all quest/NPC items in case they lost them, such as Campfire Badge, Rogue Sword, etc. All these items are going to be co-op bound, meaning you won't be able to trade them in any way except with your co-op members. This is just a good change, especially with the next change after this, which I'll even read right now. They talk about quests. This topic is quite important, but it didn't fit into any of the other threads. They're improving their quest and NPC systems for 1.0 so they can implement better quest content and make the game more lively. The global quest line will finally unveil the story of this world and will lead players to a familiar place. So they are increasing the amount of quests that we have in the game. They're increasing the just viability of the quests and just the coolness of them. And Rusty giving you the items if you accidentally lose something makes a lot of sense. And they're binding all of the accessory type items from those quests to your co-op instead of just to you. That's just those are some good changes. I'm interested to see what they do with quests. I'm interested to see what familiar place we end up getting to. But those are two changes that are coming. Next topic is on progression. It's a very important subject, but it doesn't fit into any of the last 4 threads, so they're talking about it a little bit here. They plan to go over the whole progression of the game and improve a few aspects. First off, they want to give clearer goals to players at every stage of the game, but they also plan on making each mob have its own uniqueness, both in what they do and what they drop. You can also expect a lot of gear and PvE balancing on the way to 1.0. So yeah, progression's getting a huge alteration. I assume if you're super endgame, you're not really going to notice any of this because you'll be at the max tier that the game offers before 1.0 comes out. But earlier game players are probably going to have more set paths on what they should do and just better progression overall rather than just going from like a Livid Dagger to a Hyperion or something. Or there's a lot of huge jumps in the game. There's a lot of gross progression just steps that you have to climb up, and hopefully they can tune that out and make it just a little bit better. For this next change, everyone sit down. We're on 50 million coin Midas's island because I assume that he's going to be very sad about this, and that is colored dyes. Following the previous point, we're going to add extremely rare colored dyes in the loot table of multiple mobs. For example, Ruined Wolves will rarely drop the Celeste dye, which can apply the B2FFF color. Colored dyes will allow you to change the color of any leather armor in the game. There are already exotic armors in the game which were obtained before we removed the ability to dye armors. They want to preserve the rarity of dyed armors, which is why for now all dyes will be extremely hard to obtain. And we also want to make sure exotic armors do not lose their worth, and new dyed armors will have a new icon in the description so they are not confused with old exotic armors. Oh my god. I'm sure that a lot of people in the community are malding the people who have bought the 9 billion coin armor. Definitely, they say they want to preserve the value. They say they don't want it to lose value. But let's be real here. Let's keep it 100. They're gonna lose value when they add all the dyes to the game. Whenever people find whatever drops the black dye, they are going to be grinding that so hard just to try and get their armor to look a little cooler. I think that this is a great idea. I think exotics, while they are cool, it'd be nice if everyone just had the ability to dye armor, and I think that this was the best way they could go about it. They totally could have just been like, hey, buy dyes for bits, and then they could have made loads of money, but instead they are going the route of allowing people to get some extremely rare drops and probably make a pretty penny off of them. So that is going to be removing exotics from the game most likely, but it's going to be making all armor just look a little bit cooler and have a little bit more customization for yourself. The last change that they talk about here, we're in the museum because they're finally talking about this. I'm sure a lot of you guys know where this is in the hub. This is a spot over by the castle where you glitch in through this door with a horse pet, and you can see all of these cases and just a bunch of stuff around that could be displaying stuff. We've never had an idea of what this is actually going to do in game, and finally they're talking about it in this thread. They say in the first few design threads they talked about system changes but haven't really mentioned new features. They don't want to spoil the content, but they did mention the museum in like the release thread of Skyblock, so they're not spoiling much. The concept is quite simple. The museum curator will accept almost any armor, weapons, and rare items the game has to offer, and he will sometimes reward you as you complete your museum. Donating items doesn't mean you'll lose them, however from that point the items will be bound to you. Don't donate items you want to sell later. The curator is going to track when you gave each item so you can brag about being one of the first ones or not. The system will allow us to create cool events outside of the main game. The museum being a physical place on the map, you'll be able to choose which items to display, and anyone will be able to visit your museum. Maybe you'll even get tipped. It'll be hard to complete as every update will bring new items, but every donation will reward some Skyblock level XP. This is nuts. This is a bit crazy because there is a lot of armor, a lot of weapons in the game, but the museum is going to be a spot to display all of that. It's going to be a spot where you're going to be just grinding out the completion of the game. It's definitely going to promote getting things like emerald armor or just any of the collection armor more and more. I think this is a good change. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how quickly people are maxing out the museum from the 1.0 update, because I think that a lot of people are going to just go and buy a bunch of these items right now. Definitely do try and buy things while they're low, I guess, because things like a mosquito bow are probably going to be put in here, and the digested mosquitoes are really cheap, or at least they were really cheap. I don't know if they still are after this thread. But that is going to be it for the thread, and that is going to be it for the video. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. I felt like this thread was a pretty cool one. It was just a bunch of smaller scope things, but I'm always down to see some changes for Skyblock, and a bunch of these are pretty hype. Let me know what you think about the removal of exotics from the extreme rarity that they are right now, and leave that in the comments below, because I think that's going to be one that gets a lot of people riled up. But that's going to be it for today. Hope you enjoyed. Talk to you in the next one. Peace out.